Today on At Home, we're going to make this adorable fold and go nativity, perfect for the kiddos in your life. So let me show you how to make it. So like I said, this is the adorable project we're going to make today, and it folds up and holds all of the cute little characters. Let me open it up for you so you can see. So we have all of our wise men and Mary and Joseph and our angel and baby Jesus. It's just such a great toy for kids. It's a great gift, and it's really quick and easy to make thanks to this panel. So let's take a closer look at that. So this is the Joyful, Joyful Nativity panel designed by Stacy Iest Hu for Moda. It's so cute. I just want to point out kind of how it works. You'll notice here are the outside parts of our stable. And then all of these little sections here are the different tabs that you'll need to secure your stable and close it up. And then off on this side are all of our wise men and sheep and just the characters that we need. There's also great instructions where she walks you through the different stabilizers you're going to need and even some diagrams on assembly. So let's go ahead and dive right in. Okay, so once you have the panel, you're going to cut out all of the different shapes, but you're also going to need some other supplies. You're going to need some polyfill if you decide to fill the little characters inside. There's also an option to do those flat, but you're going to need some Interform single-sided fusible from Bosal Foam. You'll also need some medium weight fusible interfacing, one package of the Sew On Soft and Flexible 5/8 inch Velcro, and just, some time to get started with this project because it takes a little bit of time, but it is very fun. So let's move all of these out of the way. There we go. And I will show you what I have here. So on the outside of your nativity, and you know it's the outside because it's the part that has this nativity belongs to and all the little characters in the windows. On the outside, you're going to attach that Bosal foam, the single-sided fusible, and that's what's going to give this nice sturdy shape. And so all I did is lay my shape onto that Bosal, trace it, cut it out, and press it from the top. So we've fused it from this top side. And so you can see I've done that. Now let's talk about the tabs and the Velcro. So when you're looking at the project, let's start over here. There's all of these little spots that are marked for where your Velcro goes or where your tabs go. So the tabs have like these little kind of arrows to indicate where they belong. And there's these rectangles for your Velcro. So I've gone ahead and cut these two pieces of Velcro, and we're going to go ahead and attach those. So let's take this over to the machine. And I'm going to start with this little one down here at the bottom. I love that they've made this so easy by marking everything out so well. So I'm just going to sew on all four sides of that Velcro, leave my needle down here and pivot. You kind of have to maneuver this through the machine, but it's really flexible, so it's not hard to do. There we go, needle down, pivot, and one more. I did back stitch at the end there, and then I'm going to go ahead and just trim off any of the little threads that are hanging, and let's go ahead and add this longer piece of Velcro as well. So here is that one. If you wanted to put a pin to hold it in place, you could, but I found that it was fairly easy to just get it to stay where I needed it to. I should point out that the soft side of the Velcro is what's actually sewn onto the house itself, and the pokey side is what's going to go on those tabs. So keep that in mind when you're adding them as well. So let's sew this one down and pivot I'm just watching as I turn to make sure I don't sew off the edge. And back stitching at the end. There we go, and then trimming off those threads. So now all of my inside Velcros have been added. Let's go ahead and make a tab. I have one done so you can see how it looks when it's finished. And then I have some pieces for another. So let's set this aside for now and I'll show you. So this is how it looked in the panel. Remember those little rectangles that I showed you? I also have one right here. This is a 2-piece tab for the very top. So let's just go ahead and cut this out for now. Because this is all printed, sometimes it's just a little bit wonky, and I just want you to not worry about it. It will all work out in the end. So I'm just going to trim off my extra fabric here to make one of our small side tabs. There we go. So now the trick with these is we're going to fold these in half long ways, just like so, and I am just going to sew down the 2 ends, so on the right and left side of that fold. There's one side, flip that around, sew down the other side. There we go. So now you can see here what that looks like. I'm going to go ahead and take my scissors and I'm going to trim up this seam so it's closer to 1/8 of an inch. And I'm also going to clip off that top little corner just to get rid of some of the bulk. So we're going to do that on all of our tabs. Just be careful not to cut through your stitching. There we go. And now I can flip this because the bottom is still open. Can flip this open and I can use my nails or the end of my scissors, or I just kind of roll them with my fingers until everything lays nicely. And then we're going to press this just so it lays nice and flat. Oops, turned that little side, that's okay. And now we can add our Velcro. And so this is just going to float in the middle of our little tab, just like so, and I'm going to sew on all 4 sides. So let's go ahead and do that. Whoops, moved on me. Like I said, this is pretty forgiving, so you don't have to worry too much. It does need to be a little bit closer to that folded edge than the bottom open edge because we're going to catch this bottom side in a seam. There we go. Set my scissors over here. But we just trim those off as we go. I find it easier to do that as I'm working instead of waiting until the very end. So now let's go ahead and find where these little tabs go. You can see I've already attached half of them. The brown ones go right here between these little notches. We have a little white arrow here, and you can see it fits exactly between there. And then the yellow one goes up here between those 2. And so that is exactly how we want that to look. And so what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to baste these in place. If you're not familiar with that, that just means I'm going to do a narrower stitch, but I'm going to extend the stitch length so it's nice and wide because we just want to hold this on. This isn't going to be the final line of sewing. So let me do that. Oops, what did I get stuck on? There we go. There we go. You can see those nice wide stitches just to hold that in place. And I'm going to do the same thing up here. Perfect. All right. So we have our tabs added and our Velcro in place. So now we just need to make our handle and that last little tab for the top, which I have over here. So let's pull these out. So on the handle, you are going to use that medium weight interfacing. So I have attached that to the back side here, and it just irons in place. And now we're going to take this to the ironing board, and I'm going to turn this under 1/4 inch on each long side, and then I'm going to match this and press it in half. So that's what we're going to do over here at the ironing board. So first along this flat edge, and I'm just eyeballing this. You make enough quilts and you have a pretty good guess of what 1/4 inch looks like. So there's that side. We're going to turn and do the same thing on the opposite side. Just like so. And now I'm going to fold the whole thing in half. Make sure my ends are, or my edges, excuse me, are lined up. And then we'll just press that in half. There we go. All right. And so now that I have my ends turned under, I'm going to start by top stitching along that long side, and I'm going to add a line of stitching on the opposite side as well, just to make it look nice. You have to remember to turn your stitch length back down since we're no longer doing that basting stitch. There's one side. I'm going to go ahead and press that just because it is rolling a bit. There we go. We'll press it again, and stitch it again on this side. There we go. And so now I'm going to set this aside for a minute, and I'm going to work on the little tab that goes on the top. Those are those two pieces here, and this is the prickly side of the Velcro that I've sewn on here. And we're just going to place this now right sides together. I do want to point out, when you line these up, just because of the nature of how panels are printed, you can see it's a little bit wonky. I'm not going to worry about that at all right now. I'm just going to sew in this U shape, leaving the bottom open, and we can trim it straight at the end. So let's go ahead and do that. Just take your time as you go around the curve. It's pretty gentle, so you can just kind of pivot a little bit at a time. There we go, and back down the other side. Perfect. So just like I did on those little tabs, I am going to narrow this seam up just a little bit. So I'm just going to kind of trim this off some so we don't have as much bulk that we're dealing with. Oh, and I don't know if I remembered to tell you or not, but the side that gets the Velcro, you also put some interfacing on. So you're going to want to do that. And so then I am going to just do some little notches around the curve so that this will lay nicely. Just being careful to not cut through those stitches. We're just letting the fabric kind of ease around by giving these little notches in there. Just makes it lay nicer in the end. There we go. And now we can turn this right sides out. Poke that through. I like that they didn't make this so small that you can't get your finger in there, because you still totally can. There we go. That looks really good. Oops. All right. Let's give this a press now from the top side, not the Velcro side. There we go. And now we are going to top stitch just around the outside edge, just so that has some extra stability. Perfect. Now that little tab is done. Our Velcro is on the inside. And so now we can attach it and our handle to the outside of our stable. So the the tab, excuse me, has a little black triangle, and there's a little white triangle right in the center here. And so I'm going to match those up because that is where that needs to go. And I also know that when I pull this around, the Velcro needs to be facing up. So I'm going to make sure my Velcro is facing up, and that is lined up there. I'm going to go ahead and turn this so I can just baste this in place for now, which is just that longer running stitch that we did. Perfect. And then now let's sew on the handle. So we're going to do that by lining up the little triangles again. I love that they have all these reference points for us. And so I'm going to go ahead and just start with this one. You can see it got a little bit crooked. And so to make this easier on myself, I'm just going to trim this off straight. And that is totally fine, as long as I can find where I put my ruler. Sometimes things wander off when we are working on a project. There we go. I'm just going to trim off a little bit of that excess just to make it smoother. And I thought it was important for you guys to see that sometimes it just is a little bit wonky, and that's just the nature of working with panels like this sometimes, but it's not going to affect the end result. So we've got the same little black triangle that we're lining up with the white triangle, and I'm going to start by doing one row of basting. All I could think of was binding. I'm getting ahead of myself. There we go. And then we're going to fold this and fold this, because that's how this little handle goes. And the same little triangle on the opposite side. And we'll baste it down. There we go. So now let me double check and make sure I have all my pieces on. We've got our little tab, all of our Velcro. Whoops, I have one more little Velcro on this side, which is the catch for this opposite one. So let's go ahead and sew that on as well. So you can see it just has kind of an empty square where that Velcro goes. So I'm just going to sit that in there and add this last little piece. And then the outside of our stable is done. Oops, I still have my long stitch length. Listen, this is why we do these together, because it happens to the best of us, right? So I've turned that back down to normal, and we're going to sew this in place. Just pivot. The outside of the stable is done. Remember, this is the side that we stabilized with the Bosal foam. That's that heavier stabilizer. We've added all of our little Velcro, our tabs, and our handles. So let's go ahead and talk just a little bit about the inside, because it is pretty straightforward. All that I did here was cut this out and put the medium weight stabilizer on it. And now all we have to do is match these up, just like so. You can use some pins and get this all lined up, and then we're gonna leave a small opening, probably about this big, to turn it, but we're gonna sew all the way around this. So I'm gonna put some pins in it, and I'll meet you back at the sewing machine. Okay, so I have clipped all the way around this, and I want to point out right here, I pinned it with pins to point out my start and stop places. And so if you look on this inner panel, there is actually some little coral colored triangles, and those indicate the opening we're supposed to leave so that we can turn this right sides out. So now that I have this all pinned and ready, I'm gonna start here and make my way all the way around and stop there when I'm done. And so I'll meet you back at that place. All right, I just got to that in place. We've made it all the way around. I do want to point out, I didn't stop right in the corner because stitching that up at the end will be very difficult. So I came down about 1 inch and then I left that opening. So now I'm going to grab my scissors and I'm going to trim my corners just to get rid of some of that bulk in all of these places. And any of these spots that it got a little wonky, I'm going to trim off any of the extra just to keep that bulk down. There we go. And then these inside corners, I am going to clip towards that. Put just a couple little clips in there. Again, just making sure you don't trim through your stitches. So this one got off quite a bit, so I'm just going to trim that. There we go. And none of that is going to matter at the end, which is all we care about, right? Just keep making my way around, clipping those corners and the points. We are almost there. All right. There we go. You see, I'm just shaving a little bit off, not a ton. Now we'll go back to our opening and we can start turning this right sides out. So I kind of reach my hand in there and you can actually grab the handle on the other side. Just don't tug too hard. And we're just going to start pushing this through our opening. This is always the most satisfying part. Just take your time. You don't want to pop any of your stitches. There we go. The little sides are kind of tricky. They all want to bunch up in the middle there, so just get them untangled and going in the right directions. There we go, I can help that out. And then I just run my fingernails along those edges. If you have a knitting needle or something, that would work too, or a backside of a wooden spoon. I've got a few options. Try not to stick the Velcro to your sweater like I've done 100 times today. go. And this last one over here. We've almost got it. Okay. Ta-da! So now we can press this nice and flat. I am just gonna turn under these little edges, and then I'm gonna top stitch all the way around this entire thing. I have that done already over here, so let me show you what that looks like. Let's open it up one more time so you can see. Let's see, all the way around, I have top stitched around the edge, and then any of the places where it folds, I went and put a line of stitching as well, just to make it easier to fold. So that's what you're gonna do, all the way around at the roof line, around the base, and again on the roof line. So now real quick, since we didn't cover this, I just want to show you when you're making your characters, you're gonna have a front and a back for each one. Here's our little wise man. And so you can see it's the exact same idea as anything else we've done here. We've got our little arrows that we're going to put this right sides together, and those will be our start and stop points. So we'll just stitch all the way around, turn it, fill it with our fluff, and then you have your finished little characters. So super quick and easy. I just love this project. I love how it came together, and I know my niece and nephews are gonna love playing with it this holiday season. So I hope you enjoy it. Have a wonderful day, and I'll see you next time. Hey everyone, it's Misty. Thanks for watching at home. If you aren't already a part of our Missouri Star family, be sure to subscribe and hit the bell if you want a notification every time we release a new video. I'll see you next Monday on the newest episode of At Home.